So let's go ahead and save this, and let's see how this goes. So I'm going to close out this, hit save, and then we're going to try to test it, and hopefully we see something. It looks like immediately we got 500 errors, which seems okay. And that's because we're passing a key 1 of success. So the reason why we may see errors here is because it's expecting the event.path to have an event.path, right? So immediately if we look at this test event, we can see there's no event.path. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a path here. We're going to say /users. Then we're going to add a body, which is, let's say, user ID 2, name Josh, and let's look at our DynamoDB table. So we got job and name. So name is Josh, user ID is 2, and then the job we'll say is dev. Okay, so this is us kind of experimenting with this, and then we're gonna hit save here, and now let's test it again. So it looks like it's saying missing required key table name and params. This is good. This means that we actually got an error. This means that our try catch block is working, right? Because it tried to run API handle create user, but when it tried to run this section here, it didn't have the required table name. And why doesn't it have the required table name? Because we didn't actually pass it into our environment variables. So now what we can do is scroll down on this Lambda page, and instead of Google Places API key, we're going to change this to table name. And then we're going to change this XYZ to users. Because if we look back at our DynamoDB table, we can see that our table name is called users. So now we're going to add this here, and we're going to hit save. So now hopefully it'll have the correct table name, and let's test it again. Okay, so it says now that the user is not authorized to perform DynamoDB put item. So now what we want to do is we want to give it the proper permission. Looks like we need to actually edit the IAM policy. So as you can see, it's a simple case. We just want to store something in DynamoDB, and now we're having to do all this other stuff just to set this up, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at the IAM policy or our user role. And so this create user role has basic Lambda, a basic Lambda policy. So what does that look like? Let's say edit policy. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to basically edit this now. So we have 2 statements inside of our IAM policy. One of them is for create log group. The second one is for create log stream and put log events. So now we're going to create a third one. Let me just copy this here. Actually, I'll copy this one. It's a little bit easier. And then we're going to say DynamoDB. We're going to look back at that error message and see what it's asking us for. So it's saying it's not authorized to do put item. Let's copy that, put item, and then let's grab the ARN of our table. So let's go back to overview. We should have an ARN down here. So now this ARN is going to be added to our resource. There we go. And we should be able to save this, and we should be good. So it'll give us kind of a breakdown here. It says that we have DynamoDB access to the users table, and we can write to it. So let's save. And then now let's jump back to our Lambda function, and let's try to rerun this. Okay, so it has a more complicated log. So this is where we want to switch to CloudWatch. We're going to go back to this AWS Lambda create user, and then we're going to search for the most recent log. And then once we have it, we're going to take a look at what is being thrown in the response. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like we aren't console logging the response. That's one improvement we can make. So right before we actually return it, we're going to do a console.log response. Let's save it and run it again. Okay, and now we can go back to CloudWatch and see where it comes through. Okay, so now it's saying response.body with the status code of 200. So what that tells me is that it might have actually worked. So let's check DynamoDB now. And if we refresh, we now have 2 items. So there we go. So that took a little bit, but one thing to notice is that we didn't actually have to package up the AWS SDK, which is that's a much more complicated process. Because the AWS SDK is part of AWS, it's very common. They already have that functionality for us. So all we have to do is just write the code here. We just have one file. We get the environment variable for table name. We have a handler function, which handles the initial what path is it on, all this stuff. And then we have the handle create user, and that handles basically contacting the database. So these things work together.